Hi there, my name is Hayley and today we're going to be learning about abstract art. This lesson's for any age range, so long as you're able to use scissors, markers, and paint without making a mess or hurting yourself. There are going to be some larger words in this lesson, but I can explain them as time goes on. Abstract art is an umbrella term that encompasses a lot of different styles, time periods, and mediums. So there's stuff that's like writing, there's stuff that's drawing, there's stuff that happened in the early 1900s, there's stuff that happens right now, all sorts of different things going on. We will have a choice of 3 mini activities that you can pick from, or maybe do all of them if you want to. And it's a great way to get your brain and your body moving, even if just a little bit. So with that said, let's dive in.
What is abstract art? Abstract art is a broad art movement that started in the start of the 20th century that is still going strong today. Abstract means to exist in thought rather than physically. This means this art movement contains art that is more about what you feel and imagine than what you see. Some abstract art is figural, which means it has a subject that you can recognize even if it's changed dramatically from real life, but sometimes it's all about how it was made and less about how it looks. Abstract art is so different from even itself that it contains a bunch of smaller art styles like Cubism, Surrealism, and Kinetic painting, also known as action art. There are even more mini art movements that I won't cover, but I thought these ones would be the most fun to talk about. Let's start with Cubism. Cubism. Cubism was the first of the abstract art movements chronologically. Chronologically means it came first in the timeline. Cubism focuses on using shapes and strange perspectives to make an image. Cubism is widely credited to Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque as the founders, but it was inspired largely by non-Western art. Picasso and Braque felt like Western art that it was based upon the Italian Renaissance, like, the Mona Lisa, had run its course and no longer was the best that it could be. They wanted something new and fresh, so they looked at art from parts of Africa and the Middle East for ideas to copy and incorporate into their work. Part of the reason they felt so bad about Western art was that photography had recently been invented. Photos were a much faster and easier way to represent the world with how it actually looked than trying to paint it. Instead of looking at art as a way to represent real life as close to you could get, they wanted a new way to look at the world. A lot of Cubist works are figural and show scenes of real life like peoples and buildings, but they look drastically different from how you would see them by using crazy colors, block shapes, and skewed perspectives. There are 2 styles of Cubism, analytical and synthetic. Analytical came first and was the mostly painting with colors that could be seen from the real-life thing they were painting and was extremely geometric, using big shapes with harsh corners. Synthetic came after and was inspired by collaging and uses bright colors and more organic rounded shapes like squiggles and circles. Unfortunately, while the Cubists like African art masks and patterns, they weren't uninterested in the symbolic meaning behind the art and merely interested in how it looked. It is sad to say, but a lot of African artists who made the work that inspired these Western artists are uncredited and their names are lost from history. Copying work that is important to someone and profiting off of it is called appropriation, and it is still a hot topic today. Cubism inspired many other art movements afterwards in different parts of Europe. In Germany especially, the movement of Expressionism was invented. But let's stop for a moment and do a mini Cubist activity. Cubism has a bunch of cool ways to draw faces that can be fun and easy, even if you do not consider yourself great at drawing what you see. To start, let's have you sit a model in front of you to sketch. The model can be one of your parents or siblings or a photo of someone if you have a photo of them at 2 different angles. First, draw a line down the middle of your paper. Sketch out one half of the faces on the left side of your paper with a pencil. Once you're done, change the positions of you and your model so you're seeing them at a different angle. Then, draw the right side of their face on the right side of the paper with a pencil. Second, now that you have your sketch, trace over the lines that you would like to keep in a dark colored marker. Take note of the shapes you make with the lines. It's okay if they look kind of weird, it's supposed to be like that. Now cut out different colors of paper in the shapes of the shapes you are drawing. Place them between the dark outlines. If you do not want to use different colors of paper, you can use different colors of paint or marker instead to fill out the shapes between the lines. This is just for the first 3 of the mini activities though, so set your drawing picture aside while you listen for more things to learn and do. Surrealism. Surrealism is a movement that's all about using your unconscious mind to make art. It focuses on mainly art that seems like it's sort of like having a dream that makes sense only to yourself. Not all abstract art is painting and drawing. Man Ray is an artist of the Surrealist movement who used abstract photography in writing. He used photography in a cool way. Most photographs show exactly what something looks like, but he drew over photos and collaged them in a way to show something impossible or strange. Surrealist works were often inside jokes that only the artist shared with themselves. Even if it only makes sense to you or doesn't make sense at all, it is still a good piece of art. Some Surrealist works show something that looks normal, but something is out of place or impossible. Anything that feels slightly strange or surreal counts. Famous artist spotlight: Baya Mahieddine. Baya Mahieddine, also known as Fatima Haddad, was an amazing artist who had her first show in Paris at the age of only 16. She worked in the house of a friend named Marguerite Camina. Camina noticed that Baya Mahieddine was talented at making clay animals and encouraged her to hone her abilities, even giving her a painting set. She was born in 1931 and was raised by her grandmother after her parents passed away. She was extremely influential even when she was young, and Picasso learned a lot from her. A writer named André Breton was so impressed by her paintings, he wrote about her in his catalog, which had an exhibition along with some of her paintings. This was the show that she had at only 16. A year after she got married, she had to stop making art because of her home country of Albania was having a revolution and she wanted to support it. But once the revolution ended, she began making art again and did not stop until she passed away in 1998. Her art has a unique sense of color and style, and although other artists at the time considered her to be a surrealist, she truly was her own thing. People in her home country admired her so much they put pictures of her and her art on stamps. She loved her home country as well, and refused an offer to move to France permanently during times of unrest in Albania. Some of her most common motifs or recurring themes are butterflies, animals, women, and the instruments that her husband played. Activity 2. Dream drawing. In this activity, we will be trying to remember a dream that we have had before by drawing it on paper. If you do not have any idea of what your past dreams are, put a piece of paper or a notebook near your bed so when you wake up you can quickly write down what happened to save it for later. Dreams can be fun, scary, or confusing, but sometimes we can tell us important things about our lives. Sometimes I lose things and then dream about where they are, and I find them. When I wake up, I check where they were when the dream told you. Dreams are strange like that. There are no steps to this project that are for certain since every dream is different. Try remembering what happened and what was in your dream and draw it with the colors that your dream was. I used to have a recurring nightmare when I was little about a shark driving a car. I thought it was very scary because a shark may not be able to leave the ocean and drive my house, even if it seemed it was possible. It's kind of silly now because they can't drive cars. But anyway, set your drawing aside for now and let's learn about the last art movement that we will be learning about today: action art. Action art. Kinetic or action painting is a painting style that focuses more on how you paint than what the painting looks like. This is all about having fun and expressing yourself, even if you make a mess and the painting doesn't look like anything. Action art is a type of expressionist art. Expressionism is art that expresses how you feel and act more than what you see. Action art took place in the 1940s to 1960s, but there are people who still do it today. The art part isn't what's on the canvas so much as what you did to get there. It's sort of like performance art in that respect. Activity, kinetic art, or action art. The last of these three activities is possibly the one I think is the most fun. It's all about experimentation. The first step is to pick the supplies you would like to use: paint, markers, or maybe even both. If you would like to use both, it is best to draw with markers first, then paint after, so you do not mess up your markers with the paint. Step 2 is to draw or paint using big movements. Do not focus on the page at all. Maybe even look away if you have something underneath the picture you can use to try to not make a mess. Try to move your arms in new and exciting ways. Try switching your hand you're drawing or painting with, closing your eyes for a few seconds, or try moving only your shoulder to move around the brush or marker instead of your elbow and wrist. Do whatever feels the most fun. Step 3 is to stop and clean up whatever you feel like you've had once you've had enough fun. Admire your work and think about all the work and effort you put into it. Look at the other pieces of art if you did with the other activities. They're all abstract, but they look so different. That is the beauty of abstract art. It is what you make of it. Bonus content. Those activities were really simple and were a nice break from learning, but let's go over one last thing before I wrap up. I thought it would be interesting to talk more about another artist I really like who does abstract art, Marcel Duchamp. Duchamp was a French-American artist who participated in the Cubist, conceptual art, and sometimes maybe Dada movements. He didn't really like to box himself in, sort of like Baya Mahieddine in that respect. I like him because he really pushes the boundary about what can be considered fine art. Personally, I consider art to be anything and everything. If you walk down the street with an interesting gait, I think it counts as performance art, for example. Now, back to Duchamp. Duchamp really disliked other artists who only cared about how art looked and made art that was meant to please the eye, as he put it. He wanted to make art for the mind. Most of his art is very conceptual and meant to make you think about the intent and meaning behind it, even if sometimes there is not one. He had many different pseudonyms or fake names, and over time, they were sometimes silly puns. Perhaps because he was so controversial and didn't seem to take art seriously, he may have had to make these names to submit art to contests and galleries without bias, or people knowing it was him. Other times, though, the artist's name was part of the art itself. His most famous work, perhaps, is that of the sculpture titled Fountain. Fountain is a urinal placed bottom side up with the signature R. Mutt, another fake name of his, in black paint on the side. He submitted it to a group that he helped found. The others in the group, not knowing he was the one who made it, narrowly decided that a urinal is indecent and cannot count as art, and they would exclude it from the show. Duchamp and one of his friends resigned from the group in protest, saying that it's not right to censor art. Fountain is an example of a ready-made type of art. He actually invented the concept of ready-made art. He coined this term to describe the art he made from manufactured materials. The description chosen for ready-made art was published in a magazine he and his friends made, although it isn't certain exactly who made the quote. Quote, "Whether R. Mutt and his friends had made the fountain or not had no importance. He chose it. He took an ordinary article of life and placed it so that its useful significance disappeared under the new title and point of view, created a new thought for that object." End quote. This means that the urinal became art because choosing the urinal was an act of creativity, naming it by giving it a title made it art, and removing it from its function, aka not letting people pee in it and not attaching it to a wall, makes it art as well. Personally, I feel that conceptual art, especially conceptual art as crazy and abstract as this, deserve to be mentioned as a little treat for you all. So, just to wrap up, there are many art movements considered to be abstract. Cubism is about turning what you see into shapes with either harsh or sharp edges or soft edges through use of perspective. Surrealism is all about the mind and all that it can create. Action art is the process over looking over the final result, and finally, conceptual art is about stretching the idea of what can be considered art, and all about what you think about it. All of these movements are influential to current-day artists and matter very much. Looking at history is a great way to inspire what you would like to do in the present. Not all abstract art is left in the past. There are plenty of modern-day abstract artists who use unique mediums to showcase their work off the canvas or on it. There is a professional makeup artist who goes by the name Hungry, who does abstract makeup that makes the model's face look scary and distorted. Kiki Karade makes a unique stenciled art out of cardboard, masking tape, and other everyday objects. Frank Amerlan uses chemicals on canvas to make shiny paintings that remind me of the puddles that happen under running cars. Plenty of modern artists are abstract, and so you can be.
I hope you found the different lessons and different activities in this lesson fun and educational. You can be an artist no matter how young or old you are, just like Baya Mahieddine. And if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, just send them to communityworksla.org. And I would love to see any of the activities that you've made, and you can just send pictures of it there, and I would like to see them as well. And I would hope that you get to develop an eye, an ear, and a nose for art. And I hope to see you guys next week. Bye.